Hello there. This is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another video. Athletes have primal masculine energy. Now, I've talked about the body game element of athletes. I've talked about it. You know how they'll be built a certain way, they can play a certain sport. But one of the things that I talked about is just how just playing sports, especially at a competitive level, brings out masculine energy in a man, particularly in sports where men have to physically confront each other. Like a prime example is football. It's a brutal ass sport. It's a brutal ass sport. Boxing, anything like any combat sports, they are brutal. But let me just use the football example, because we got all these football games going on. Anybody who's actually played football know it is brutal, and especially if you played it at a higher level, like the college and pros. They are hurting each other. That's why some guys have gotten permanently injured. But it's totally brutal. Think about when someone's, the offense has the ball. First of all, somebody's rushing a quarterback. The linemen are going against, you're talking about guys who can bench 300, 400, maybe even 500. They just pounding on each other. They just hitting each other. That's brutal. That is brutal. Anybody's played football, they'll tell you that's brutal. You got to be aggressive. And then if somebody a quarterback, they got to be able to take hits. You got to be able to dish out hits. And they confronting each other. Anybody's actually played, if you're a lineman, you're in your stance. You're looking across the line at either a defender or someone on the offensive line. You got to look them in the eyes. One thing about looking someone in the eyes, it's a very martial activity. When you can look another man in the eyes and you don't blink, it communicates a lot. But you got to have a certain masculine energy to even do that, because naturally people don't want to get hurt. So they would tend to avoid it. But when you're playing sports, like a sport like football, you're about to engage in an activity where you're going to feel some pain. And then even in other sports that maybe don't have that level of contact, if you look at basketball, it's brutal. You got some of these basketball players now at college and pros, shoot, they got padding under they are wearing some stuff under the uniform that is actual padding. And anybody who's actually played is it is some brutality. Soccer, that's the big thing right now. Soccer, if you watch some of these stuff, guys are coming off the field, just a kick, shoot, they dragging themselves off. But it's a primal masculine energy, because think about the energy. Two primal things about it: masculine energy protects, and it's also a hunter. It protects, it got to be a warrior. That means it has to defend. But then it has to be a hunter. It got to have that kill instinct. It has to have a pure brutality. And I'll never forget when I interviewed an elder on an internet radio show that I had one time. And he said, one of the things that we having problems with masculinity out here, a lot of kids aren't playing sports the way they used to, because it develops not only that aggression, but disciplined aggression. That's what it means to be a man. And that's one of the things. And really, if we're going to bring that back around to man gets woman, one of the things that turns on a woman about a man is his aggression. All that toxic masculinity shit is bullshit anyway, so I don't even pay attention to it, because the same woman or even a man who say it, they want that toxic masculine man if somebody is physically assaulting them. So just ignore all of that. But control, discipline, aggression, that's something. Fighting. You know what? I can't remember that content creator. I heard a content creator say something. I got to shout. Sterling Cooper, I think, did. I saw a clip from a content creator, Sterling Cooper. And he was talking about You know how online you got all these trolls and everything. And these people who talk trash online, you know, hiding behind something. And he had said, which I agreed with, he had said it wouldn't be the case if it was like back in the day. If you talk trash, you had to physically confront somebody. You couldn't do it hiding behind something. If you had to say something, you had to look them in the eye and say it. And that kept a lot of peace, because then there was a repercussion. And indeed, him, and I think he said this, but I know another one of my elders said, it's not a bad thing for men to fight in the streets, because it brings out that aggression, controlled fighting. That's one thing growing up. We had fights, but it was controlled. You had to follow certain rules. You couldn't grab or wrestle them, as they would say, to the ground. You had to straight up box them. If you lost, you were respected, as long as you were straight up. But it teaches a man something, brings out the controlled aggression. Because a big problem with a lot of men now is that fear. That not just of women, but just stepping up. A lot of guys that just don't have that energy, that aggression and everything. Except for like some athletes, they still have it. They actually still have it. But that's being limited because young men aren't playing sports like they used to. And it don't have to be football, because that is brutal, but something where they have to be aggressive. They have to bring their energy. Because if you want to win at everything, you got to have a killer instinct. You don't play for ties. You don't play just to have fun. Indeed, how it used to be, kids, you know, young boys had to compete just to be on the team. That whole concept of participation trophies didn't work. And if they didn't make something, then they learned. They had to go back and work hard. You know, basketball legend Michael Jordan, he got cut from his junior varsity team. He got cut. Now, a lot of guys, they get cut. They figure, oh, well, I don't need to play this sport. He came back. And that's a common thing. You want something bad enough, you keep going for it. But that's masculine energy too. Because one of the things is Master Yao had said this in his landmark book, Amamara, because he had mentioned a football example. He said a lot of guys watching football, but they're not participating. Their masculinity is dying slowly, like cutting grass on Saturdays and everything. You know, you need that aggression. You need it. You know, controlled aggression. You know, there's nothing wrong with like kids like fighting sometimes if it's controlled. I remember when I was young, I got my ass whipped. I got my ass whipped on my front porch in Southeast DC. My mother was watching the whole thing. She was right there. And then after the dude left, because, you know, when he fought then, people weren't trying to like go crazy and pick up guns. But after the dude left, she just looked at me and said, pick up your left next time. And that's just how it was. But controlled aggression, because then you can put it in other areas of life. You ain't afraid to talk to a woman. You don't have any fear there. You know, you don't have any fear about going for that job promotion or going for what you want. See, that's the thing. But it brings it out. And that's one of the things. It's not just the athlete's body build that'll get the women, but just that they will tend to be more aggressive. And yeah, you got some guys who are athletic and they might still have some trouble, but as a whole, there will be a tendency to be aggressive. The women ain't just turned on just by the physicality, but these are guys who they want something, they're going to get it. And that's it. And of course, that's general. I know somebody will probably say, well, I knew this guy who was happy he didn't do it. General. If this shit was a pure science, we wouldn't have any problems. But, and I'm saying this from decades of observations. Many of the guys who were getting the women, they were getting it. I said this in a car video. They weren't getting it because of some status or something. That's some corny ass shit. That's some corny ass shit. They were turned on by that. They were turned on by the man's physicality and his aggression. Because that's what turns it on. That's masculine energy. The feminine in a woman is always going to respond to the masculine in a man. Sports is one way to bring it out. Sports is one way to bring it out. So I want y'all to really think about that. Now, if you didn't play sports, anything like that, hey, you can still hit the gym. You can still do some stuff. And they got rec leagues. Or take a martial art. That's a sport, and that's definitely combat. In fact, I would say this. I would highly recommend maybe taking some type of martial art where they have regular sparring. It'll bring out something, trust me. But do something active, okay? You got guys talking about a lowering of testosterone. A lot of men aren't as active as they used to be. But that'll raise it up, all right? So anyway, that's all I have for this one. I'll get back with y'all. Peace and blessings.